Welcome to Something More with Chris Boyd. Chris Boyd is a certified financial planner practitioner and senior vice president financial advisor at Wealth Enhancement Group, one of the nation's largest registered investment advisors. We call it Something More because we'd like to talk not only about those important dollar and cents issues, but also the quality of life issues that make the money matters matter. Here he is, your fulfillment facilitator, your partner in prosperity, advising clients on Cape Cod and across the country. Here's your host, J. Christopher Boyd.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being with us. I'm Chris Boyd. I'm here with Jeff Perry and Russ Ball, both from our team, the AMR team at Wealth Enhancement Group, and glad to have you with us for what's going to be a special episode. Jeff Perry, I'm going to have you do the introductions because you've made arrangements for our special guest today.
Before the show, Jeff, so there's two Jeffs, by the way, so here we go. Welcome to the show, Jeff Katz.
Absolutely. Pleased to be here, Jeff Perry.
There we go. I was talking to Chris Boyd and Russ Ball before the show started, and I'm thinking, how did I meet Jeff Katz? It must have been something related to his time on the radio in the Boston area.
Right.
It must have been related to some political issue. Do you remember the actual reason that we met?
Well, that's a great question. Let me see. It was certainly related to something political.
Right.
I think it probably has to be because you were a distinguished member of the State House of Representatives.
Well, that's a big stretch, but sure.
You were a member of the State House of Representatives.
There you go.
How's that?
Thank you.
And you always had great points of view. And obviously, as we like to joke, the People's Republic of Massachusetts, your views and my views were just a little different from some other folks.
Yes. When I was elected, I was one of 15 Republicans. And among the 15, I'm not sure how many of those individuals were actually Republicans. So I did have the opportunity to get some media because I was talking about values and positions on issues that were not in the mainstream of Beacon Hill politics. So
absolutely,
probably one of those things that we connected, and we've stayed connected.
That's not how we got connected too originally, right?
Yes, you had me on the Chris Boyd radio show, Something More radio show. On, do you remember the issue, Chris Boyd?
No.
See,
no.
What's the old saying? They won't remember what you said. They'll remember how you made them feel, right?
Yeah.
Well, you made me feel great, and I will tell you, no, you really did. And in addition to that, obviously, we both bonded over the fact that we've got law enforcement backgrounds. You were far more accomplished in that area than I ever was, but nonetheless, sort of a cop-to-cop relationship as well.
I think that's right. I think that's right. The brotherhood of all of that, and you've been outspoken on a lot of law enforcement issues over your radio career and your public career, and we've just kept in touch here and there. And I saw the reason that you're on the show today, I think you know it, but for our listeners, is I saw on one of the social media outlets, I think it was probably LinkedIn, that you had written part of a book, and I thought it'd be great to have you on to talk about the book itself.
Sure.
And issues related to leadership and goal setting and some of the other topics that are in the book. Before we do that, though, who is Jeff Katz for the listeners who may not have had the privilege of hearing you?
Probably a lot of people know your name, but for those who don't, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. There are a couple of Jeff Katzes floating around. One of the Jeff Katzes that is really an accomplished law enforcement leader was the former chief of police in a community here in Central Virginia and is now up at the FBI Academy. I'm not that Jeff Katz. There's another Jeff Katz who apparently is a big-time Hollywood producer. I'm not that Jeff Katz either. I'm the Jeff Katz that grew up in a real blue-collar neighborhood in Northeast Philadelphia, and was a police officer, got involved in some crazy stuff throughout the years, including the world of pro wrestling, and spent a little bit of
not as a wrestler, though.
Well, I was told,
Oh.
yeah, well, I thought I could be, and then probably within a matter of 5 or 10 minutes, the trainer, a guy by the name of Larry Sharp, who had opened the first pro wrestling school in America that was open to the public, it was called the Monster Factory. After about the first 5 or 10 minutes, he said, "You're just not very good at this," and he said, "But you're a really good talker, so you are going to be a talker." And so my involvement in that was talking, and I've been involved in broadcasting and talk radio for, I just counted the years the other day, 33 years, and have done programs around America. Did a couple of tours in Boston at the legendary WRKO in Boston, and sort of the regular go-to fill-in guy for some national shows, Glenn Beck and Eric Erickson and Todd Starnes. And most importantly, I'm a dad. I got 3 little kids and a lovely bride. So there you have it.
There you go. And so tell us about the book, the Elevate and Empower book.
Yes, I will do the patented shameless plug. There you go. That is the book.
Video for people who are just listening, but he's holding the book up for the camera to see. Yeah.
I absolutely am. If I had a chain I could wear it around my neck, I'd walk around with it and make it available to people. But what's happened throughout the years, and I mentioned having 3 children. One of my children is Julia, my daughter Julia. And Julia's going to be 22 years old next year. And Julia has very, very severe developmental disabilities and just a lot of real problems. She doesn't speak. Her walking is kind of Frankenstein-y, if you will. Can't take care of her own daily needs. So Julia is an interesting person, and what I have found throughout the years dealing with Julia is that Julia actually has a lot of lessons that she has shared. She doesn't know she shared them, but she has shared them, and I have developed a business of public speaking. You know, I've spoken publicly in one way or another for the better part of 3 decades, as I said, but actually going out and delivering keynote addresses now. I do one related to pro wrestling and how that can make you a better salesman to achieve your goals. Because in pro wrestling, we work backwards. We come up with the solution first and then go back and fill in the steps.
You're not saying that the outcome of pro wrestling is predetermined.
Yes, I am. As a matter of fact, that's exactly what it is. But it's still a great show and it's great athleticism. But sure, it's just like a play or a TV show or a movie. I do one called Lessons from the Worst Salesman. That was me. I do a terrible job as a salesman. And I do one, I think Jeff will appreciate this. It's called Why Would Anyone Want to Do That? And I deliver that to police academy classes, especially, and law enforcement groups around America, about what it means to have that servant's heart and why you're called to it. But my favorite keynote address is called The Quest for Cookies. And that is Julia's story.
Which is the name of the chapter in the book.
That's absolutely, boy, I love Julia's story. And it basically is this: Julia, with all of her limitations and disabilities, and they are severe, make no mistake about it, she knows she loves cookies. That is her favorite thing. Simple as that. And she was able to figure her way out of her room. She undid a gate that, in all candor, I have trouble undoing, but she undid that. She navigated out of that room down a hallway that has steps on one side, and Julia doesn't understand levels or steps. You know, that's just not a concept she gets. And she navigated through this. She came into the kitchen. She didn't touch anything sharp or hot. She went to the pantry and she opened it up and she took out every single cookie in the pantry. And I got to tell you, she didn't take out the can of cranberry sauce. She didn't take out the loaf of bread. It was cookies, every single cookie. And she wound up, she covered the kitchen floor with cookies. And guys, we became aware of it. My wife walked in on her and was screaming, "Oh my God, oh my God." And I thought something terrible had happened. So
was this in the daytime or evening?
Yeah. Yeah, and we were both doing other things. I was prepping for the show, and Heidi, I don't know exactly what she was doing, but she was doing something. But we were sure that Julia was safe and sound where she was supposed to be. And boy, she taught us. And
Where
I
there's a
got
will,
there.
there's a way, huh?
Exactly. I'm going to say, she picked up one cookie, she'd take a bite out of it and throw it in the air, and bite another cookie, throw it in the air. And it was an unbelievable mess. And it was the most beautiful mess I've ever seen in my life. Yeah.
I think you captured the heart of Boston anyway, with your letter to Julia. You write a letter to your daughter on her birthday each year.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it was her 18th birthday, right? That you wrote the letter, and the Boston Herald caught wind of it, if you will, and put it on the front page. And then you read it on Facebook Live, I think.
There he is. Yeah. I was going to say, Jeff, the reason I did that is that the family was in Swampscott. And I was doing this ridiculous commute back and forth from the Richmond area in Virginia back to Boston. And I go back and forth, and it was Julia's birthday, and I was not going to be there. I was down here. And to put it mildly, I was miserable. I was miserable about the fact I wasn't going to be there. And really, just for myself, I wrote that letter, and it was late at night. I think I probably started at around 11 o'clock at night and finished up around 2 or 3. And I put it up on Facebook. I didn't think anybody would care. I kind of did it for myself, and I went to bed. And by the time I got up in the morning, I must have had 50 or 75 text messages, including from my old friends at the Boston Herald, where I had been a columnist for a period of time. And they said, "Oh my gosh, we'd like to share the story."
Great. Yeah.
It's I just love the way that you love all of the challenges. You look at them so differently. Can you talk about that? Because some people, when they have a significant challenge in their life, whether it be a health issue or a disability, or whether it be a temporary thing, maybe, I'm not comparing these things, by the way, that, I mean, yours is a lifelong commitment, but can you talk about how you have chosen to view this and handle this, and rather than just feeling bad for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a very difficult path. And Jeff, you no doubt remember my first period on air at WRKO. And during that time, I'm going to tell you something. I started out single. I wound up married, but I started out single. And there was no bigger Jeff Katz fan in the world than Jeff Katz. I was madly, passionately in love with me. I felt about me the same way that Jill Biden seemed to feel about Donald Trump and Notre Dame. I could not get enough of me. And then Heidi and I get married, and we have a couple of kids, and it's all going well. The first child is Harry, and Harry is just hitting everything out of the park. Every goal, every milestone, he's doing it. And Julia doesn't hit any of those. And we don't know, right? We're looking at Julia, and we're going, well, she's a beautiful little girl. She's cute. She's cuddly, but she's not interested in doing anything. And our friends and family, they were all very supportive. There's, oh, well, listen, Julia's just on her own schedule. She's going to do it when she wants to do it. And it just became clear to us that was not the case. And so you're faced with it's a choice. It is an absolute choice to either go all in and say, I don't quite understand why this is happening, but it's happening. And I've got to be there. I've got to do everything I possibly can for her. Or some families split up. Moms and dads go their separate ways. And
sadly, it's pretty common when there's a challenge in a marriage like that.
Yeah. Exactly. So we just said, all right, we're all in. And Julia has provided lessons. Julia has provided rounds of applause and cheers when she finally did start crawling, as an example, because we were told every step of the way, listen, this is it, right? She's never going to crawl. She's never going to walk. She's never going to do any of this. Like, okay. And so you you kind of get your mind set to try and deal with that. You can't always deal with it, though. I mean, some things are very difficult. I'm never going to get to embarrass Julia by dancing with her at her wedding. You know, it's just never going to happen. And I felt sorry for myself for a long time because that wasn't going to happen. I was not going to get to chat with boyfriends and show them my collection of armaments, or be counting, be looking at ammo when they came over to visit. That wasn't going to happen. But all of that being said, Julia took this guy who really was an egomaniac, I think, when I was starting out in broadcasting and wrestling, and turned him into a guy that has become a tireless advocate, especially for kids with special needs. And I don't know how many people I've spoken to through the years. It's a lot. But I will tell you that Julia, without ever saying a word, really has touched more people. She's made a difference in lives that again, she'll never understand, but she's made a big difference. And so that's how I got to this point. I just decided there really were some important things, and then there were some really important things, and then there's Julia at the top of that list.
That's a great story, and you're still writing the letters, I assume.
Yep. There's a part of me that every year, honestly, I dread it and I look forward to it. Is it going to be interesting to anybody else? I don't know. And again, I kind of write them for myself. I share them, but I kind of write them for myself and for Julia. This year's going to be a really tough one, or rather, 2025, when she turns 22, is going to be a tough one because she ages out of the school system. And now it's a whole new set of challenges and roadblocks and obstacles. And, we got to gear up and get ready.
Yeah. And I'm sure you and Heidi will be up to that task.
Thank you.
So back to the book for a second. Quest for Cookies. You told us the narrative of the story. Thank you. How do you relate it to personal development, elevation, empowering? What did you use that story for in the book?
Well, the story comes, it's the final chapter in the book, and there's some great people in there, some business leaders, Navy SEALs, some other folks with life lessons that translate again into other segments of the world, if you will. Julia's story, for me, provides inspiration for others, and it also takes from people the ability to make excuses. Right? Every one of us that wants to accomplish a goal, every one of us that's looking to be successful in whichever way it is that we define success, we invariably put roadblocks in our own way. We make excuses for ourselves. And the Julia metaphor translates in this way. It takes all of that out of there. A child with the mental capacity of an 18-month-old should not be able to undo that lock. They should not be able to safely navigate their way through a house that is filled with bad things for them. And at any point of that journey, she could have stopped. She could have touched something that hurt her. She could have fallen. She could have just gotten discouraged, and she didn't. And it was full bore, full steam ahead, because she knew exactly what it was that she wanted. She also, at least in theory, should not have been able to be so discerning when she finally got to the pantry and opened those doors, right? I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. There's ceramic baking dishes. There are glass lids. Any one of those things could have hurt her. Heavy cans. She did not touch any of those things. She went right for the cookie. She knew what it was that she wanted. And so that's how I share the inspiration, really, to move forward. If she can do it, there's absolutely positively no reason for anybody else to say, oh, geez, it's too hard. I can't figure this out, or I'll never be able to pick out the right thing.
Well, this obviously translates to any sector of the world. I know you've shared it with police academies and such, but thinking about the business community, the political community, and these lessons apply to all of us.
They do, Jeff. And, it's interesting because, again, it sort of ties in with the world of pro wrestling, right? This is another life lesson that you're starting with your goal. You know exactly what it is that you want to do. You know exactly how you want this to end. Fantastic. First stop. Now you got to work backwards. Now you got to figure out those steps. I think when you put the two of these together, it's a good life plan. It's a good roadmap. You have that goal, both the world of pro wrestling and Julia. They knowing what the goal is. Julia wanted those cookies. Storytelling in the pro wrestling world says, "Hey, this is the guy we're going to make the champion and make him the big draw." Now we got to figure out the steps along the way. And again, if a girl with such limited mental and physical capabilities is able to do that, then anybody who is developing in a typical way, anybody who really does want to achieve those goals, anybody who really does want to hit those milestones, they can do it. They can absolutely do it.
Chris, and Russ, I've been taking up all the oxygen here with questions.
Well, I mean, I think that let's plug the book one more time while we're talking, because I think this time of year is the time of year when we're all thinking about new goals, and we're starting to get ready for a new business year or resolutions. If it's New Year's Eve, we start thinking about these kinds of priorities this time of year. So, I think this kind of a resource could be helpful for people thinking about what's next year going to bring. What are my priorities? How am I going to accomplish all that I want to accomplish? And some inspiration from a book like this. So share it again, pull it right up and share.
Absolutely. It is Elevate and Empower. There we go. It's far more attractive than I am, but I'll tell you now it is available on Amazon, but I urge you not to buy it there. And I'll tell you why, because this is a financially based show, is it not?
No, so I know. I've sold the book on Amazon, and
it is a tale of two Jeffs, and not Jeff Katz and Jeff Perry, but Jeff Katz and Jeff Bezos. If you buy it on Amazon, you will help Jeff Bezos, and I'm sure he'd appreciate it, but I think he's set. If you go to jeffkatz.us, you're buying it from Jeff Katz. I will quite honestly go to the post office in my local small town here in Virginia. I will sign it for you. I will mail it to you. And don't beat up on me, because this is not the best business plan I know. But when you buy it from me, I'm then taking a portion of the profits and then donating them to charity to help other folks with special needs like Julia. So
very nice. Well, that's where I want to go next. So again, that's jeffkatz.us.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to put a link in the show notes. So
great. Thank you.
Listening to the podcast can easily go to the show notes.
You mentioned earlier, Jeff, that you have made it, somewhat of a mission to advocate for kids with special needs. I'd be interested in having you elaborate on how are you doing that, and maybe just tell us a little bit about how people can make a difference.
Absolutely. The opportunities are really wide and far flung, and every parent of a special needs kid sort of begins the same journey. You think, first of all, this is the first time this has ever happened. You are the first set of parents to have a child with disabilities and special needs. And as your doctors are telling you, hey, don't Google this, you go home immediately and you start Googling it. And you gotta find sort of your sea legs. Yeah. The system, good, bad, or indifferent.
Of all the scare, all the anxiety about it all, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. And believe me, you're going to have scare and anxiety that's well founded, but you don't need to exacerbate that. And it's a bureaucracy. And I know we all have friends who have worked in A system, B system, whatever system, and there's some really good people in every single system. Every single bureaucracy I know has got good people, but the systems that are in place, the bureaucracies that are in place to deal with special needs kids remind me often of a merry-go-round. You've got to jump on and hold on, because at every step of the way, that thing is spinning and it's ready to kind of toss you to the side. So the way that you can become involved, the way that I have become involved, is to become an advocate. You start by being an advocate for your own child, because you realize if your child has again, a mental capacity of 12 months or 18 months or 24 months, they can't advocate for themselves. It's just not a possibility. So you've got to be there. And along the way, you're going to interact with other parents. You're going to deal with parents who are new to the system. They're just trying to jump onto the merry-go-round. You're going to interact with parents who have been there for a while, who can say, listen, let me tell you about this service facilitator as opposed to that service facilitator. And there also has to be an appreciation. It may sound a little odd, but what I have found over the years is that special education teachers, the social workers, the therapists who are part of this are just absolute angels. These are the best human beings you are ever going to meet. Their compensation is never enough. Their work is unbelievably challenging, and they don't get thanked all that much. And so we've made it a cause, basically, to make sure that they know we do appreciate them. On a personal basis, I realized that I couldn't volunteer in a classroom. Some people are wired that way. They can go help in a classroom, but to be perfectly blunt, I would go into classrooms and Jeff will tell you I'm a big tough cop, and I would be I my allergies would start acting up every time. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it, and so I'm on boards and committees, and I just got appointed by Governor Glenn Youngkin to our Virginia State Board for People with Disabilities to fill the seat that is designated for someone who is an advocate for those with special needs. So I guess I'm more of a policy guy as opposed to a hands-on guy, but I'm hoping and praying it makes a difference.
Well, all hands on deck. Everyone's needed in the role that they can best serve. So
yeah,
I did see that appointment. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Important that you have, or someone like you has, a voice at that level of government.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be on there. It's as you know, Jeff. Look, you in the state house. I know you came across all sorts of legislation and everything you have to analyze and inspect. And so when I got my first briefing book, it looked like an old style, yellow pages. It was unbelievable. And I don't normally have to wear my reading glasses, but I thought, well, this is spectacle worthy. I'm going to have to break them out to actually see the printing on this. But it's an important role, and I can't tell you how honored I am, how humbled I was when Governor Youngkin reached out and said I'd like to appoint you. It was just amazing.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to knock on the doors at the legislators. They'll those personal stories, those personal connections, is what makes a lot more meaningful than the books that go around or the emails or that personal story. Someone at their door who has a life story to share can go a long way.
Yeah,
Jeff, one of the things I was thinking as you're telling this story is as part of my faith experience, we talk about the dignity of the human person, and that is the kind of thing that it clearly exhibited in what you're talking about with your daughter and the lessons that you've derived from that. What sustains you in keeping a positive focus on trying to make sense of your daughter's disability and circumstances that brings to your life?
Wow. That's a tough one. I think there's probably a micro and a macro, right? Yeah. Macro, I look at this situation, I look at Julia's situation writ large, and continually struggle with trying to figure out why, right? There's always that argument, that question. And when I finally get a chance to meet God and have a good, sit down conversation, I've got a couple of questions. I will share that with you guys. Now,
sure.
Now, one of those questions actually is mosquitoes. Really, I don't get it. I don't understand mosquitoes. But the other one is going to be Julia.
Yeah.
And I think that you again have a choice when you get placed into this. You either become angry and you renounce whatever faith you may have had and said, how dare you do this to this child, and how dare you do this to me?
How could this be? How could God want this? How could this be? Yeah,
exactly. Or you try your best to maintain that faith, strengthen that faith, and I mean, not that any of us are really equipped to figure out God's plans or his thinking, but when you step back, and I do this, I look at this and I say, okay, so Julia's situation has turned her dad into an advocate. Julia's situation has turned her father into somebody who is going out and saying, hey, folks who are in Julia's situation or in somebody else's situation, they are human beings. You mentioned it, the dignity of the human being. Every single one of these folks is created in the image of God. Every one of them is one of God's children. And we either stand with him, not understanding fully, maybe not even understanding a percent of it. But there are those little glimpses, I'm telling you, that every once in a while come across. And I've described Julia this way. Julia, again, she has touched far more people than I ever have. That story from the Boston Herald, Jeff, that went viral in ways,
unbelievably, yeah.
Millions and millions and millions of views. Millions of people have read Julia's story, and Julia, without ever saying a word, has touched all of those people. Julia's laugh will light up the entire house. A tear from Julia will make you sad in ways and give you pains in the pit of your stomach you can't even imagine. And that smile, though, when she encounters a breeze or a cookie, it's a smile again, and a laugh and a giggle. It lights it all up. And that's the face of God right there.
Yeah. And isn't it all supposed to be about love and loving one another and the lessons of love? And
exactly.
You have certainly, you and your wife have certainly demonstrated that kind of love and shared it with the entire world. So, Jeff, thank you for coming on today to talk about the book. And I know it's easier to talk about the book than it is to talk about your own emotions and your own challenges, but sharing them with other people has a purpose as well. And
and you've touched us as well. We appreciate it, and I'm sure the audience appreciates it as well. I'll just mention that, we didn't even talk about some of the things that are the financial and estate planning elements of all that come with these kind of considerations. We'll have plenty of other opportunities to talk about those kind of topics on another segment. But thanks for the book you've worked on and written, and the inspiration that comes with that, and the help that it will bring to many people as they think about trying to keep perspective and move forward with the kind of goals and aspirations they might choose to pursue.
Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah to you and your family, Jeff.
Same to you guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Until next time, everybody, keep striving for something more.
Thank you for listening to Something More with Chris Boyd. Call us for help, whether it's for financial planning or portfolio management, insurance concerns, or those quality of life issues that make the money matters matter. Whatever's on your mind, visit us at somethingmorewithchrisboyd.com or call us toll-free at 866-771-8901. Or send us your questions to amr-info@wealthenhancement.com. You're listening to Something More with Chris Boyd Financial Talk Show. Wealth Enhancement Advisory Services and J. Christopher Boyd provide investment advice on an individual basis to clients only. Proper advice depends on a complete analysis of all facts and circumstances. The information given on this program is general financial comments and cannot be relied upon as pertaining to your specific situation. Wealth Enhancement Group cannot guarantee that using the information from this show will generate profits or ensure freedom from loss. Listeners should consult their own financial advisors or conduct their own due diligence before making any financial decisions.